If I were you, I'd stop listening. I know a lot of stories say that, but I'm dead serious. Stop. No? Well, it's your choice. I can't stop you. Well, consider this story a warning, and let's leave it at that. It was a completely normal day. It's always a normal day when these things happen. I was on here, reading and listening to creepypastas to freak myself out. I used to like that sort of thing. I loved the feeling of chills running up my spine when I saw a shadow out of the corner of my eye after reading a story. I was going to read a ghost story I thought sounded interesting when something popped out at me. It was titled, I Dare You. It seemed to glow brighter than all the other stories shown on my screen. I was curious, so I clicked on it. This is how it went. Hello, I have a dare for you. Only the bravest of the brave will do it. We all have that one creepy person in the neighborhood. That pale, quiet girl in school, the crazy old man down the street, or the middle-aged woman who swore she heard voices when her husband died. Yes, that person. Go to their house. Sounds easy, right? Well, here's the quirk. They know something you don't. All of them have one thing in common. They all have this one thing that makes them the way they are. You have to ask them what it is. It may sound easy, but you will figure it out. Good luck! I smirked at myself as I thought about Claire. Claire was the crazy person in my town. She always had wide eyes and rarely ever left her house. She always had a pained look on her face and always walked very slowly. She seemed frail and harmless enough. I thought I should go. Then I read the single reply. It had no name. All it said was, "Don't do it." I dismissed it immediately and turned off my computer. Time to go see Claire. It took about 15 minutes to get there, but I didn't stop walking. As I was walking up the steps to her house, I saw a curtain on one of the basement windows move. I peered over and saw Claire in the window. Her eyes seemed wider than ever. Her long black hair framed her pale face. I gulped and motioned towards the door. She shook her head violently and left the window. I went up to the door and rung the doorbell. No one answered. I knew Claire was home, so I rang it a few more times. Still no answer. Being stubborn, I wasn't going to give up. I marched down over to her basement window and peered down into the basement. Claire was still standing at the window, so her pale face scared me just a little. I spoke through the window, hoping she could hear me. "Claire, I just want to talk. Please let me in." Claire shook her head again, and I heard her muffled voice come through the window. "No, Claire can't move. Claire is never..." I had never heard her speak before, so I was confused by the way she referred to herself as Claire. I smiled gently at her. "May I speak to you right here?" She studied my face for a moment, then gave a curt nod. She was so frightened. I could see her trembling as she stood before me. Now it wasn't about the dare. I just needed to know. I took a deep breath and said, "Tell me what's bothering you, Claire. I won't say anything, I swear." Her wide eyes grew even wider, and she squealed. I expected her to run, but she just fell over onto her bottom, trying to avoid my gaze. I looked down at her. "Claire, tell me, please." She looked back up to me with tears streaming down her face. "Claire's second life. It's ruining. It's breaking Claire." I resisted the urge to run. Second life? I wondered. What the heck is she talking about? She looked back down but kept speaking. "We all have second lives. Most just don't live theirs. Claire is living second life. It's horrible. The doors, the footsteps, the shrieking. It's too much for Claire." She abruptly stood and tried to run in the other direction. After she took 2 running steps, she collapsed. She covered her ears and screamed. I pounded my hands on the glass. "Claire, what's happening?" I yelled. She looked at me, tears flowing even more freely now as she spoke quietly. I had to read her lips to figure out what she said. She had whispered, "Don't move." I shouted to her, "I'm gonna go get help, Claire, don't worry." I stood and started running, but right as I took the first step, I understood. A wave of pain washed over my entire body with each step I took. Sounds of doors slamming and creaking open and closed, loud footsteps, and the voices of people who I had ever done wrong by, yelling, shrieking, and crying, filled my ear. I was overwhelmed so much that I had only managed to squeak before I collapsed to the ground. The sound quieted and the pain dulled after a bit, but flashes of white filled my eyes. I turned my head to Claire's window. I could hear her faint shrieks coming from behind the window. She had managed to bring herself back up to it again. I didn't dare move closer. I knew what was happening. My second life had begun. I know I'll go mad like Claire if I take one more step. We don't know what causes our second lives to start, but you never know. It could just be knowing about it. But don't say I didn't warn you. Yours could have started right now. Our only request is don't move.